Hello everyone, welcome to the part 11 of this GraphQL Golang tutorial. So in this part we're going to continue where we left in the last one. So in the last one we did create this kind of validator package where finally we have this validator struct. We have a new constructor here. We have some stuff here with the isValid, and we do validation on email, minimum length, equal to fill, and require. Those was the validation we want to provide right now in our app. And now time to jump on how we're gonna handle that and add this to our API finally. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna create inside this model file a validation file finally. And in this one, this is where we're gonna put the validation. So the way I want to deal with that, it's if you remember, if I go back to my validator, we want to have this type of method to the struct input we're gonna get from the GraphQL stuff. So this way we're gonna be able after that to use that as a kind of a generic way where we're gonna be able to check the validation and push that to the GraphQL layer. So the way we're gonna deal with that is first we're gonna create a function. And this thing is gonna be a method on the register input value, not the pointer. I didn't put the asterisk. In here I want to validate the thing I just showed you, where we're gonna return a boolean and a map of string. This is what we want. So now, as you can see, Golang already know then this one go to the interface of this validate like that. So yeah, so it's pretty nice. Yeah, I think. Oh, they say. Oh, yeah. So now the way we're gonna deal with the validator is first we're gonna use our validator library and we're gonna create a new struct of it, a new pointer of the struct. Now I can append to this struct the validation I want to provide. So example, I want to require an email, and by using the email, if you ask how I did get this register input, remember this is coming from the GraphQL gen who add all this register input and stuff like that, all the input we have in the schema GraphQL, and then generate that for us. After that, here I want to also check then my email. It's an email. So this is what I want. So I want my email to be required, and after that I want to be the email. And remember what we've done yesterday. Example, if we go to the email validation, if we have already the error inside our struct, inside our map error inside the struct validator, if we have it already, we return false. So this way, the require is the first, after that is the email. After that, I want to deal with the same thing with the password. So I want the password to be required. And I also want the minimum length of my password to be 6. After that, I want to require the confirm password. So here that confirm password. And I want that to equal to a certain field. So I want my confirm password with the value confirm password to match my password with that password. After that, we want to require the username. And also, I want to make sure that the username have a length of 2. Like that. Finally, we're gonna return v that is valid. This thing gonna return us the boolean we want here. And we're gonna also return the error maps, like that. So here, this is for the register. Now it's pretty simple to add another one. Example, I want to add that to the logging input. So logging input, I'm gonna make use of L to logging input. I want the email to be required. I want the password to be required. And I don't want to provide any kind of minimum length of the password because I don't want like someone to send those requests to this password. I mean, we can keep it. It's a minimum length of 6, but I think we already do validation if this is matching. So, but you can maybe put that in because you're gonna make sure then someone pass a password of 123, you don't hit your database. but I don't really care in my case here. So now I've done this validation. That's perfect. But now, how are we gonna do the validation to the GraphQL layer? So what we're gonna do is inside the GraphQL package, I'm gonna add a new file called validation. And this one's gonna be just one function called validation, lowercase v, because that's gonna be used only in this GraphQL package, so I don't need to export this. This one here gonna receive a context and gonna also receive a validator interface. And we want to return a Boolean. So here is the interface. So finally, if you want to get to this second argument, this need to follow the interface of this validator. Not the interface of the validator, but the, yeah, I just mess up, is validation. Yeah, validation interface. Sorry about that. So if you have the function validate, not the function, but the method validate, this can be provided here as the second argument. So now, here I'm gonna do isValid and the error from the v.validate. If it's not valid, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna loop over each of the error. So here that's gonna be the key, and here that's gonna be the error of the error, because remember it's a map. So when you range, this is the way that deal with that. And after that I'm gonna call GraphQL add error. So GraphQL add error, it's a way to add an error to the current response. So it's pretty nice. So you can kind of like append those errors on top of each other. So when the front end receive it, you don't just have the error about email is required. You also receive email is required, confirm password is required, and username is required. So now inside this add error, the first argument need to be the context. And after that, here, that need to be a pointer to the GQL error. Here, this is what we need to fill. For the message, I'm gonna make use of the E with a string. For the path, I don't really care. For the location, I don't really care. I don't really care about the null. I just care about the extension. And the extension, I want that to be a map of string of an empty interface, so that can be everything here. And that need to be like that. And here I'm gonna just say fill, so that's gonna be the fill of the input. It's gonna be equal to the key. So example, that's gonna be key is gonna be password, is gonna be is required. So the message gonna be is required, and for the field that's gonna be password. And finally, if we do not have any error, we're gonna just return is valid. But I mean, we're gonna always return is valid. We're gonna return a Boolean, but if we don't. If it's not valid, we're gonna loop over that and append those errors to the GraphQL layer. Now after that, how are we gonna deal with that? So right now I don't really like our code, what we've done in the mutation resolver. This one start to become messy, and the thing about that is the fact that if I want to have a recipe or something like that, now all my logic is bind to this GraphQL stuff, and I don't really like it. So what I want to do is to extract all of those logic to their own package domain. So I'm gonna copy my logging and my register method, and now I'm gonna create a new package, so a new directory called domain. And inside this directory, I'm gonna create a domain.go file. This one for now is gonna be just a domain struct. Nothing more, but after that, I'm gonna create a new file to my domain called out.go. And now I'm gonna paste everything I have copy. I'm gonna make sure I import everything, but now I'm gonna replace this m to be d.domain. Again, the same thing here, d.domain. And now, to make sure my domain can access the database, we're gonna inject the user repo, who's gonna be Postgres.user repo, and the meetups repo from Postgres.meetups repo. And now by having that inside my out, here I can change it every place where you use m to be d. Here I'm gonna import error. So here d. Here also we want the d like that, perfect. And here we change the m for d for domain again. Now here, the error byte credential, I want to keep it from my mutation resolver. So I'm gonna just copy those errors and I'm gonna paste that here at the top, like that. So here it's just the logic of our register and our logic of the logging. So now what that meant, it's now in my logging, I can remove all the stuff. I can do the same with register. And after that, we're gonna add the validation there. But in the same time, I want to do the same with my meetup. So I'm gonna copy from delete to everything. I'm gonna create a new file in my domain. And I'm gonna call that meetups. I'm gonna paste that again. In every place where I have this M, I'm gonna change that to be domain. I'm gonna also import context. I'm gonna also import error. In every place where we have M dot, I do Control G. I can do D dot. And now all the errors should be fixed now. Perfect. And now inside our mutation, I can remove that. I can remove that. And I can remove that. For the meetup, for now, the only thing we're gonna do is we're gonna call, and we cannot yet because what we want to do is now is to jump to the resolver. We're gonna delete the meetup repo. And now that's gonna be replaced with a domain.domain, like that. This domain.domain now gonna have access to our repo and everything. So now I can do m.domain.delete meetup where I pass just the argument. So I can do the same here for the update. So update meetup, where here we want the ID plus the input. And finally here for the create, where we want the create, and this is just an ID and the input, like that. Now for the logging and register, what we can do, it's now do, so if is valid, so I'm gonna call my validation where I'm past the input, and now you see validation accept the input because this input struck here right there. Now I've it now follow the contract of the validation interface, because if we look inside the model validation, we didn't make sure that the logging input follow this thing. So now when we call the validation in GraphQL, we can pass it right there. So now what that meant, it's now if we jump back to a mutation resolver, is valid, we can pass it the input. And now what we can do, it's I'm gonna create an error here, so I can replace those error, we don't use them. Error input equal error that new inputs error. And now I can say, if it's not valid, so if it's not valid, I'm gonna return nil and the error input. Else, I'm gonna call my m.domain.logging, pass it the context and the input. That's it. Now I can do the same with register, but now here that's gonna be register. Now you see all this code become pretty simple. So this validation stuff, for sure you can use this validation with other stuff than the GraphQL thing. Like you can have this same method as the validation, but now don't talk to GraphQL add error, but talk to your content, something like that. And now inside your controller, you can have almost the same code. And after that, you know that when you get that inside your domain stuff method, it's everything is already filled up with the validation you need. Now after that, if I want to start my server, now we're gonna get surely some error. This is the beauty of Go and typing language. Now you can just fix this error. So query resolver. Now the query resolver that was using error that user repo, but now the resolver don't have it. So you need to add domain between them. If I restart, and for restarting, if you use the same as me as the Golan from JetBrains, you do Control R and that start. And now here I have user resolver, same stuff. They want the domain. And now the thing is the server here. So we continue to inject those meetup in the user repo inside the GraphQL resolver, but the resolver don't want it. So what I want to do is inside my domain, I want to create a constructor for my domain where I'm gonna use both user repo and meetup repo to returning a pointer to a domain. And now what I want to do is inside my server, I can say d equal domain.new domain. Here I'm gonna pass it my user repo, so user repo. And I want to pass also my meetups repo where I can say db like that. And now I can delete those lines and came here and fill up the domain and pass it the D like that. The letter D, yeah. And now I can restart my server and now everything looks like it's compiling. Now the only issue I have, it's now I'm gonna show you some tips if you use Golang. It's now, if you remember, I always need to source those things. If you use Golang, what you can do is copy those line. You click on your edit configuration, and here inside the environment you click on this $sign and you fill up the name. So db URL for the value. I'm gonna paste what I have. After that, I'm gonna create another one called gwt secret, and the value it's a secret. So now I can click OK. I can apply that, and now every time I'm gonna start my server, I'm gonna add those environment variable. But for those who don't use this, don't forget to source .env. So now, inside my GraphQL layer, so if I click on run, now we can try to do some mutation. So I'm gonna try to register user. So register user, I'm gonna call register. I want to put an input. Inside that, I'm gonna have email, username, password, and confirm password. Beauty of GraphQL first, it's if you forget to pass confirm password, even without talking to RDB, username, we're gonna get confirm password if you require type string is not provided. So you see, like you have this error already. So you can now pass the confirm password, and now, at least now that can hit your server. So now if I run that, okay, no, wait, yeah. So we get first name. We forget first name and last name. So first name and last name. Now I forget to add those to my validation. So if I go back to my model validation, I'm gonna just add those 2 times. And this one here, that's gonna be first name. Here after that, that's gonna be first name. And finally here, I'm gonna do last name. And here I'm gonna do last name. Okay, yeah. Last name. Okay. Now if I restart my server, I forget to do this validation, sorry about that. Now if I run, first name is required, last name is required, and you see the field, last name. Email is required, password is required, confirm password is required. Now the thing is, in your front end, that's gonna be, example, the error you're gonna send back. You can change it, don't worry, pretty sure you already know that. But now the beauty of this, it's now the front end can loop over those errors, check the extension and check the field. An example, if you use something like formic or something like that, you can say, hey, formic set field error first name with this error is required, something like that. So yeah, so if you use formic, something like that, so inside like a JavaScript file, so example, if I do a JavaScript file, you can do something like that, like where you're gonna have your try catch, you're gonna have your error, and now here what you can do, it's like for error that I mean, you need to parse your GraphQL error, but example, if you get your error like that, you can do for each error. So for each error, now you can do formic dot set field error, where here you're gonna get that from extension dot field, and now here you're gonna have your error dot message like that. And now that's gonna make your front end pretty clean with that. So now if I fill my email with just B, 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 and B, Now I get not a valid email, makes sense. B, it's not a valid email. Password must be at least 6 characters, that's perfect. Username must be at least 2 characters, and now you get all those things. So now I'm gonna fill the username, so bob@gmail.com. My username is gonna be Bob. Password is gonna be password. This one's gonna be password123. First name is gonna be Bob, and last name is gonna be John. Now if I send that, now the error I get, it's confirm password must equal password. Because you see password123 don't fill password. Now if I send password and I send, now I get email already in use because Bob already exists. So now if I say Bob999, I get username already exists. So I'm gonna say Bob99, and now boom, I can create my user. So we did get our validation for the register like we want. Now if we test the logging user, logging it's a bit more simpler. We have email, password, and we want to return the user with the ID and maybe his access token. Email require, passwords require, input error. This input don't have an extension, so inside your front end you can just make sure then you filter them if they have an extension, and yeah. So after that here, email, if I pass B, it's not good. So now I get not a valid email, and you see we don't do a validation in password, so B pass. So now if I say bob@gmail.com, now we touch our database and stuff like that. So now I can say password here, and that's it. Everything is working. So for the other validation, like for the meetup, this is something we're gonna do in some next video. The plan now is gonna be to for what we want now is to be able to do in the next video. It's to be able to doing some kind of authorization. What I mean by that is, an example, if we go to our meetup domain, so if I search for meetup inside my domain, right now what we do here, it's we let everyone updating our meetups, and it's something we want to stop. We want to make sure that then if you are like the owner, perfect, but else you don't touch this. Same for the delete. Right now everyone can delete a meetup and it's not good. So that's gonna be the next thing we want to do in the next video. After that, I would like to show you some stuff you can do with onion. So onion, I mean onion like that, union. So why you can have like a field who can be more generic. So you can, example, return a meetup and a user to the front end inside the same key finally. But yeah, so this is something we can add in the next one. And one of the things also I want to talk about, it's some of the maybe subscription or something like that. But this tutorial, the plan with this tutorial was just to give you like an introduction of the GraphQL GQL gen. And now I'm planning after that to build a real app with the same stack there, but where we're gonna build something like a Uber clone. So like where that's gonna be like a ride sharing stuff, but we're gonna have now at least a front end for that. So we're gonna have like a React application, a React Native application mobile for the driver, or for the customer finally, or maybe I'm gonna make use of Flutter. So I've did use Flutter in for almost like 8 months now. Not every day, but I've used it quite a lot, maybe for 3 little apps, and I think it's gonna be really good to match this with Golang, because that's gonna be all this Google kind of stack, and everything's gonna be pretty good type. And yeah, so let me know in the comment if you feel like the Uber course is gonna be something you would like. So that's gonna be with subscription and everything, because we need to have real time and things like that. You know, and also if you prefer to have that in React Native or in Flutter. If we use React Native, for sure we're gonna use TypeScript, so we're gonna have type. And also if we use React Native, we don't gonna use Expo. We're gonna use React Native 61 alone. And also we can already start to inject React Navigation 5. So let me know in the comment. And yeah, so have a good day if you want, and don't forget the repo link is inside the description. Bye everyone.